Racing. If you've done it, then you know. It's not just a hobby or something you do for fun on the weekend. If you've truly been bitten by the bug, you live, eat, sleep, and dream about it. There's nothing better than the smell of the air in the paddock first thing in the morning, or the echoing crackle of a high-strung sports car coming to life. The quickening of your heartbeat as a fire-breathing V8 passes by on its way to grid. You can't wait to pull on your helmet and slide into the seat. Nailing the start, making up places on lap 1, wrestling the car to heel under braking, feeding it into the corner, and throttling out effortlessly. Exactly on the racing line. When the checkered flag falls, win or lose, you can't wait to get back to the paddock to bench race with your buddies long into the evening. This is what racing is all about. Now, imagine all that, and you're not the star of the show. Imagine the cars you grew up watching on TV or reading about in magazines. Stars in their own right that were driven by Dan Gurney, Hurley Haywood, Al Unser, Jackie Stewart, or Brian Redmond. From manufacturers like Porsche, Triumph, Lola, Lotus, Ford, and MG. Vintage racing puts the cars front and center as the main attraction at any event. Sure, the drivers are important, and some come with a racing pedigree themselves. But the cars are the true attraction. So you ask, what's the difference between racing a vintage car versus a modern car? Well, first, vintage cars with racing history have long stories to tell. Some span multiple decades. Modern race cars are still developing their stories. At this point, they're replaceable tools designed and built to accomplish a single task: winning. Vintage cars are special for the fact that they've made it through the very hard life of a competition racer and are still around to be shared. The owners and drivers of these cars are the stewards of their stories, along with the machines themselves. They're raced and maintained with the understanding that they're not easily replaceable and are an important piece of our shared history. They were racing before we were in the picture, and they'll be around long after we're gone. The blessing is that we get to write our own chapter in that car's history before we pass it along to a future steward. Let's talk to a couple of Sovren members and explore the different ways that you can go racing.
I'm Jeff Quick, and I started racing in 2003. It's the only car I've had. Started kind of on a shoestring budget, and fortunately I was a professional auto mechanic and was able to do a lot of the work myself, which made it much more affordable. I joined the Triumph Club, and I had this car on the street and went to the historics. One of the racers came by and looked at it and kind of adopted me for the weekend. They kept prodding me to put the car back on the racetrack. Well, it was a pretty awful street car, so I thought, why not? Let's give it a try. Was able to take a driving class through Kitch, performance at Pacific, and that's where it started. The car was damaged at the port when it first came off the boat from coming into the country in 1967. And my father was part of a racing team, Cal Auto, which was the distributor for Triumphs. And the owner of Cal Auto called him up and said, "You want another race car?" They had two, so this became the third car. They put it all together, built it into a race car, and it campaigned in 1967. It acquired enough points, national points, to go to what they call runoffs now, the national championship. And it went to the championship with my father driving. Went to the championship in 1967 at Daytona. So my father campaigned it into the early 70s, and things changed. The car became obsolete, race car basically. I acquired it from my father when I was in high school. After each race, I will basically inspect it. It's British, it's bound to leak a little bit. I gotta figure out if there's any serious leaks, things that need to be cleaned up, something, anything. If you're looking for anything that may have failed, kind of keep track of how many hours I get on engines, transmissions, stuff. If you don't break anything, there's not a lot of expense to, tires and brakes is basic expense, and I can get almost a season out of a set of tires. Yeah, give it a good once over, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. Put together a spare engine, bolted in the back of the trailer. I always have a spare transmission because that's kind of an Achilles heel on this particular model, with a group of other racers that drive similar cars. And they might have this group of spares, and I'll carry this group of spares just in case. A lot of it's just hardware that might break, and after you do it long enough, you know what's susceptible. And if you keep, every time something does break, I try to put it back together, upgrade it. So I have a 20-foot enclosed trailer. All the stuff stays in the trailer. My toolbox rolls in, and car goes in, and off to the track I go.
My name is Byron Sanborn, and this is Vintage Racing Motors. We're primarily a vintage race car restoration and maintenance shop. We've been, I think we officially started in late 1989. Started off in a small garage with 4 or 5 cars for one person, and it's kind of gotten a little bigger than that. We've been part of the Sovren, the local vintage racing community, since it started. We ran the very first race. We've been to pretty much every race Sovren's held since they started. So we've had customers all the way from, they bring us a transmission and we rebuild it and we give it back to them, and they take it home and put it together, put it back on their car. People that bring us cars and we store, maintain their cars. They just tell us when and where they want to race. We obviously have a semi, we have a big truck and canopies and, full support if that's what you want or need. We do in between track maintenance. Over the years, we've built race motors for people. We also got a number of people that just come in and want to talk and get some advice. They want to start vintage racing, and how do they start? What do you think you would like to race? They're a Porsche person, they're a Corvette person, they're a MG person, they're an Alfa person. Pick something. So now we need to make decisions as to, do you want to be competitive, and how do we do this? Or then you get somebody that comes in and he goes, I want to be competitive. I want to, I want to race. Okay, then how much money do you have? We tend to recommend that people start off with something as underpowered and as reliable as they can possibly, and learn to race. Pick something there are lots of them out there. There's good groups to run in, and you got lots of people to race with and learn from.
Sovren and the vintage racing community at large is a fun, family-oriented, and supportive environment. Going vintage racing can be a fairly straightforward process, or you can take it to the next level and go all in. It's really up to you. For more information about eligibility, general resources, or to contact Sovren, go to sovrenracing.org. We'd love to help you start your journey in vintage racing.